Now we're on.
Hey guys, I'm Dan Merle and welcome back to Ask a Dev. Today's question comes from Raul, who asks, what functions are needed to make a geofencing marketing app? It's a great question. Location-based marketing is such a natural fit for a mobile society that it's really easy to come up with all kinds of ways to use it. In fact, the hardest challenge is dancing that fine line between providing consumers with value or being spamming. Now I'm going to talk about iOS, but these concepts apply to Android too. So let's assume that you've got a great new product that you think music fans will absolutely love. The question is, how are you going to tell them about it? Events like Austin's own South by Southwest are ripe for geofencing marketing because of its high concentration of people. First, you could pick a popular venue like the Moody Theater, where Austin City Limits is filmed, and once-in-a-lifetime concerts take place practically every night during South by. Since the Moody Theater is a fixed building, the Core Location API makes it incredibly easy to set up a geofence centered around the lat long coordinate. With Core Location Manager, you can set up a circular region around the Moody Theater with the radius of your choosing. But what if you want to attract music fans on the move? Core Location Manager also allows you to set up a beacon region, which has an amazing reach because one region can be replicated on an unlimited number of beacons. So let's say you struck a deal to place one in every Uber car during South by Southwest. A beacon region lets you define 1 to 3 bits of metadata, a required unique identifier, and an optional major and minor value. iOS will let you register up to 20 geofences per app, but you only need 2. One for the Moody Theater and one for all those Uber cars. After we define the regions, we tell Core Location Manager to start monitoring for each one. And if we want a quick assessment of where we are, we can request the state for each region, and Core Location Manager will tell us if we're in or out. And then we wait. Now, if the user crosses a region boundary, your app will be notified about that event. Geofence events can wake up a backgrounded app or even launch your app if it isn't running. And when you're no longer using them, simply stop monitoring for those regions. But what if your users don't have your app? That's where Passbook comes in. You can generate Passbook passes, which are simple JSON files that you can email or even embed in a poster using a barcode or a URL. And you can include all the same geocoordinate and beacon information, and Passbook will activate your pass when the device crosses into a region. You can even use that to offer a download link to your app. The key to marketing is grabbing your customers' attention, and since most people's faces are buried in their phones 24/7, geofencing can be a much better solution than buying a billboard or littering the city with flyers.
Earth, 2019. Dominant species, human. Galactic potential rating, 0. Cultural affiliation, combination of government and global businesses, corporatism, legacy institution. Species still conservative, superstitious, and religious. Ecologically illiterate, largely unaware of cosmological foundation of love. Level of technological dependence is disturbingly higher than the galactic standard. Species distracted and behavior controlled by technology companies. System error. Advanced concepts detected beyond normal human levels. New galactic potential rating, over 9,000. Transmission type, podcast. Host, the man of tomorrow. Brian Sovryn. Source, Sovryn Tech.
Coming in white hot just after watching The Rise of Skywalker. Wait, no, I didn't do that. Not yet. Quick little update. Now, for years on Sovryn Tech, you have to understand, and what was this? When did Force Awakens come out? 2013? This is, of course, a show all about science and technology, how it can help set you free, and maybe why you should go run off and live in a cave. Sure, if you've been listening for the past 8 years. nay, a decade almost. But for years, ever since The Force Awakens came out, every time that a new Star Wars movie would come out, and we were getting them one a year, I would do a full half-episode review on Sovryn Tech. I've been debating about this, what I wanted to do this time around with Rise of Skywalker, because now on Zomia 1, and this is available to everybody, not just Zomia 1 Underground members, we have TIE Fighter Renegades that I do with my man Robin. And just so much fun, and I know so many of you love the show. I will save the review for that episode. Okay, so I'm not going to do a full breakdown, half of an episode here on Sovryn Tech. We'll just save it for TIE Fighter Renegades, and I'll get into it with Rob, and we'll see who else maybe we can get involved with that. But we're gonna get that review out in pretty short order. Okay, we're gonna want to definitely strike that iron, or hit that iron while it's hot, right? Did I say that right? Doesn't matter. Anyway, so speaking of things I've been waiting a while for, I'll admit. So if you haven't listened to TIE Fighter Renegades, of course we talked about The Mandalorian recently on the show. We're not going to talk entertainment here at the opening. We're not going to talk about entertainment. I'm just saying that I'm going into the Rise of Skywalker just hopeful that it doesn't suck. And as long as it isn't terrible, I'm okay with it, because The Mandalorian's just knocking everything out of the park. But anyway, we'll see. I will be catching it opening night. We'll see what ends up, coming of all that. And you'll hear our review on Zomia 1, baby. And of course, if you want to become a member of the Zomia 1 Underground, if I didn't say it already, make sure you go to Zomia1.com. And there you can ask all kinds of questions. I've been getting a lot of great listener feedback, as well as stories that listeners have even sent in. One of which we're going to get to again in this episode because it's so relevant to a very weird opening story that we're going to have, which has to do with one of our classic favorite subjects, that being the Internet of shit. I'm sorry, the Internet of thing. Internet of targets? What is it? Internet, no, there's no S, so it can't be Internet of shit, right? The S would have stood for security, but there's no S in it, so clearly it has no security. Oh, Internet of Things. Okay, we're going to talk about Internet of Things. Thank you. And sometimes I get these words wrong, but or these phrases. We'll get that down, and we're going to talk about that. And it is odd. You think, boy, what more could you possibly talk about with IoT? We already know it's an absolute failure, due to examples of the Mirai botnet and all that, showing that just the idea alone is a failed concept. And there is no right way to do it. Even though some people might think they have come up with a very novel and perhaps right way of doing it, we will decide, or I will decide, and then I'll leave it to you to decide, of course. And you can email me, bbs@sovryntech.com, if you want to let me know you can let me know if you agree. You can give me your thoughts on the matter, and I might even talk about them on the main show. But of course, the reason I mentioned Zomia 1 is because if you remember the Zomia 1 Underground, you get access to the weekly Q&A and so much more. But thousands of hours of content only available to the Zomia 1 Underground. And again, you can get the Q&As where you can ask questions, and I come out with a new episode every single week. But before we get into our lead story, got to talk about something. It's finally come out. I think the company is Retro Games Limited. Now, again, this, you might think this has to do with entertainment. No, it does not. Okay, it does not. This has to do with an actual fucking computer. In fact, finally, a real goddamn computer is available for sale. And this is from, again, I think the company's name is Retro Games Limited. I'm pretty sure. So retro consoles, okay, these mini consoles, right? Like the Super Nintendo Classic, the Nintendo, the NES or the NES Classic, as it should be properly called. And if you're other parts of the world, of course, and replace the word classic with mini, and you know what you get. But then there was also the, oh man, there have been so many now. We had the Sega Genesis Classic or Mini came out recently. That came out in September. There was the Neo Geo Mini that came out. There have been a plethora of these. My favorite of the bunch, and we have the TurboGrafx 16 Mini coming out in March of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. I do have mine pre-ordered because that's one where those games, like the Genesis Mini, I get why maybe a lot of people didn't buy that. Okay, because how many times over have you purchased those games? And while there's some games on there that are interesting and slightly unique, it's probably not hard to find a ROM even of those. And in fact, I need to remember to do that because there's a couple games that were like exclusively finished, like Tetris for the Genesis Mini, that was never actually a Genesis game anywhere in the world. And they put it on there. I should be able to, I should get my hands on that. But anyway, yeah, plenty of these things. Like I was saying, the TurboGrafx 16 Mini, that's interesting because a lot of those games are actually difficult to get your hands on. Yeah, you can emulate the fuck out of them, but as far as in any easily plug and playable way, that's a little bit of a different story. So that's one that I find interesting. But my top retro console that has come out over the past few years is the C64 Mini. Now, you got to be really clever with this, okay? Because the technical term, all right, the trademark spelling, trademark, fuck government, but whatever. Trademark is THE, no space, THE C64. Okay, that's how they got around, like, owning the name for this, is that while you could say that there's flubs in spelling and it should be and it's basically a Commodore 64, okay? It's, they have to call it, their trademark is the C64. And that's how they sell it to you. And they do, funny lettering on the box where it's the THE, the letters THE are smaller than C64. So it looks like it's two words when really it's just one. I mean, it's so crazy that they had to jump through these kinds of hoops. But anyway, the C64 Mini, which again is just a mini Commodore 64, I love this thing because it's, for all intents and purposes, a fully functioning computer. I mean, you can get right into right into BASIC and everything and go nuts. There were some things, some levels of what the original Commodore 64, which I have said, is my favorite computer of all time, and I've often called it really the greatest computer of all time. And I'll stand by that. So you had the C64 Mini, it could almost do everything, but now they have finally released, and it's available, there's a rub, but it's available, okay, to buy, even on Amazon, of all places. You can buy what's not called the C64 Mini, but just the C64. And it is the full-size version. It has a fully working keyboard. That's what a lot of people, kind of picked on with the C64 Mini, is that it had it was so miniature size. This is about a quarter of the size of an actual Commodore 64, and the keyboard didn't actually work on it. Well, of course the keyboard didn't actually work on it. I mean, that would have... I don't even want to know what the thing would have cost if it did. But I'm excited for this. And now it's not available in America yet. The only place I've seen it really for sale, if you pre-ordered, if you're part of the Kickstarter, which I don't know how I missed out on that, but whatever. If you were part of the Kickstarter, you did get yours apparently already. But now it is also available on Amazon UK, not available in America, and it runs for a little over $100. Okay, for the full-sized one. The Mini runs for about $60, which that price hasn't changed since when it came out. Now, this isn't unheard of, and it's a very little retro. I think it's Retro Games Limited. I mean, they're a small company. Okay, it's not a surprise that maybe they don't have the stock to handle what happens when it comes out in the U.S. Maybe they have to sell in certain regions and get like their present stock sold out. That way they can pay for the rest. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what the business end is on this. I'm sure there's plenty of ways for, creative ways to get your hands on something that's only for sale in Europe and get it in America. But the only thing that does bother me, not actually with the Commodore 64, not with the full-size C64, the Capcom Home Arcade, which is also technically a retro console, but it's not mini. It's a full-size arcade, dual arcade stick that, you hold on your lap, and basically two of you would have to hold on your lap, and connects, to your TV and everything. It has Aliens vs. Predator on it. I know this stuff I usually talk about on the Gaming Grid, but I think this is bigger than that, so I want to talk about it here on Sovryn Tech. That is only available in Europe as well, for whatever reason, and we were told it was going to be available in the States, even as worldwide, come end of October. It got delayed into November, and now it's not even available in the United States. So I don't know what the fuck the deal. I don't know what the deal is with this. If someone, and I know I have listeners all around the world. I know I have listeners in Great Britain. Okay, if someone can tell me why, especially Capcom. I get it. Retro Games Limited is a small company. Capcom is the antithesis of a small company, right? I mean, they're one of the major game publishers in the world. If anybody could release a retro console and get it out there, they are certainly a company that has that stroke. So I'd love to know what the fuck the reasoning is behind that. And I was admittedly I was a little bothered by the C64 because people asked when they announced that it was available on Amazon. People tweeted underneath and said, "When is it going to be available to buy in the U.S.?" And I even hearted the guy's comment because I wanted the Retro Games Limited to respond, to answer. And they've basically ignored everybody who's asked when is it going to come to the United States. So I don't know what the fuck's going on with that, but it's a shame because even if this is, and some people are calling this basically a ripoff, okay, because it's just it's the same board, more or less, apparently. It's the same board as the C64 Mini, and you can kind of tell because the firmware updates all come in the same package file, even if there might be some slight differences. Like I said, the full-size C64, there's a couple differences. I'll talk about what they are, but one of them is that it has basically the rest of the programming capability, as I understand it, that the Commodore 64 had, decades ago. Okay. But anyway, people, they're feeling ripped off because they feel like this is a bit of a cheat because they just took the C64 Mini innards and put it into a full-size chassis, right? And so you're really getting the same thing, but you might be buying it twice. Now, again, there's a little more capability, as I understand it, that the full-size C64 has over the Mini. I certainly want one. It is, for all intents and purposes, a full-on computer, even if it is running to some degree some emulation. It is a full-on computer. It's meant to be, it's meant to do the business offline. I think that's fucking great. Keep your data local, baby. There's a Sovryn Tech message for you. I want this, and I would love to. People are already talking about making games right on the, programming games for the Commodore 64 or for the C64 on the C64. That's great. Like I am so supportive, and I think that's so wonderful. In fact, they did release, I'll bring this up, I'll probably talk about this on Gaming Grid as well, but they did release a new firmware version, of course, that works for both the C64 Mini and the full-size C64, and that even came with a new game on it. But a lot of new features, they keep packing stuff in on these things. The other winner here, apparently, and I haven't touched it, and the reviews I've seen, no one's talked about it much, but the joystick that came with the original C64 Mini was a piece of shit. Like, throw it against the wall, or throw it across the room, piece of shit. It's horrible. Apparently, the joystick that comes with the full-size C64 has micro switches on it. So it should operate, it doesn't have that rubbery feel, and it should operate like a proper joystick. Again, I love it when people say that, everybody's living like kings, things are cheaper, and they can actually buy it. Yeah, well, but it fucking sucks. Great, a person can buy a $9, video game controller as compared to having to spend $50 for it. But can you actually play the game with any real efficacy using that piece of shit controller? No. So then it doesn't matter if the goddamn thing costs $9. Okay? It doesn't work. It's great, if it was $9 and it worked like a $50 joystick, right? Then I'd hear your argument that, it's great, everything's going down in price and, poor people can live like kings. No, that's horseshit. But whatever. Okay, we're not here to really talk about that. By and large, I'm very supportive, okay, in case you didn't hear me earlier, the C64 Mini is my favorite retro console. Okay, so even though I'm making fun of the controller, I love the damn thing, and I already solved it. We've talked about it on Gaming Grid, on Q&As, on Sovryn Tech. I just hook up a PlayStation 2 controller to it. Talk about great shit. And a great controller at that. And it works famously. Also, the full-size C64, speaking of controllers and inputs, it has 4 USB ports, which is very handy. And if you dealt with the C64 Mini at all, which only has 2, you know why. Because that way you can plug stuff in. Even though you don't need to plug in a keyboard anymore, because the full-size keyboard on the C64 full-size actually works. It's very exciting. I hope that this sells really well, because it's about time somebody sold a real fucking computer today. You know, instead of going out and buying, I don't know, the hottest Mac that'll cost you, what did Leo Laporte, he was about to buy a Mac for like $100,000. Oh, Apple. No, I know you don't have to buy that, but it's just, that's how far these things can go. But no, for $100 you can get one of the greatest computers of all time. And I think a still worthwhile and usable one. Is it going to last as long as the Commodore 64s of yore? Maybe not, but you can still have fun rocking it. And anyway, I love it. I think that that's so cool. And getting into that kind of computing, again, I mean, yeah, I know you get the firmware updates, you know, online, and you sneaker net them, you know, with a USB flash drive over. And so you could say still technically it requires to be online to some degree. Well, not really if you don't need to add on any functionality, but I just love that this is a thing. I think this is so cool. And yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on one. I mean, I'll put that center stage on my desk, a C64. I wish I could run Audacity on it. Maybe I'll have to program Audacity for it in BASIC or something. And oh, that'd be phenomenal. If I could record a podcast on a Commodore 64, man, you want to talk? I know you can. Believe me, we all know about the SID chip. We all know about how great the Commodore 64 was about sound. All right, I know. I fucking played with them. But, ooh, that'd be sweet. Anyway, well, I don't know if we'll ever get to that, but it's nice to imagine. So, all right, enough of that. Why don't we get into our story of the week? But before we do, you know, we talk about going local, right? Keeping your data local, you know, doing local computing like on a Commodore 64 that doesn't require the internet. Woo! You know, you talk about all that kind of good stuff. Well, how about you get local in life? What do I mean by that? Here's a website I want you to go to. FSP.org/join. FSP as in Free State Project. Free State Project, okay? FSP.org/join. I want you to go to this website, and if you want to get some freedom in your life, which one of us doesn't really, I want you to sign up for it, okay? And you can let them know. You can tell everybody over the Free State Project, hey, I heard about this on Sovryn Tech. The Golden Stallion told me about it. He's there. He's in New Hampshire, because that's what this is about. Getting 20,000 people, and there's already over 20,000 signers for the Free State Project, but getting them together and having them all come to one geographic location and taking steps towards making more freedom in their life. Liberty in their lifetime. Liberty in your lifetime. You want to find out more about it? FSP.org/join. I moved to New Hampshire for it 8 years ago. A lot of other people did. A lot of people that became the best of friends to me. And so much more. Check it out. FSP.org/join. There's so much to get involved with. There's community events happening all the time. If you feel alone, believe me, I know. I was in New York, and I felt alone in my ideals. I don't know about ideals. I don't know if I want to use that word. But in my ideas, and in just wanting to be left alone, you know, by everybody else. If you felt alone, though, and not in the bad way, right? You want to be left alone to have just the peace in life to do what you want to do. But you want to, you know, it's great to share things. Like, everything's bullshit if you don't get to share it. If you want to find people to share things with, if you want to find a community, if you don't want to be alone ideologically where you are and your desire for freedom, I want you to check out the Free State Project. Again, it's FSP.org/join. And I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. All right. Well, we were just talking about how to get some freedom in your life. Here's probably a way to lose all of it. Oh, you know, maybe with Internet of Things devices. Now, in fact, here's a funny thing. Okay, so this story is from November 2019, so just last month. Here's a funny thing. So where I'm going to pull some choice quotes from, about this whole ordeal is kind of a project I'm also a part of. They are not a sponsor of the show. But I think it's another great option, great idea. Of course, it is. So, the Free State Project is liberty in your lifetime. Okay, it's getting it doing practical things right now. But there's other projects similar, kind of intentional communities, things like this. Again, similar, not exactly the same, but similar. And one of those that I'm actually a quote-unquote citizen of, even though I hate the word citizen, is Asgardia. Now, what's this? Asgardia is the space nation. This is something, it was put together by like Russian billionaires or whatever, and it was a couple of years ago. We've covered it a few times, actually, on Sovryn Tech. And their idea is they are literally going to build space nations. Okay, I don't like the word nation either, but you get my point. They're going to build a space station, and that's going to be the nation of Asgardia, as they call it. Obviously, very forward-thinking individuals, and the idea of going to outer space, ultimately, to get some hardcore liberty and freedom in your life is, I think, a valid one, and a damn good one. Maybe a good idea to do is to get it started, in New Hampshire, right? Get used to having that freedom on Earth, and then we can just parlay it up to the stars, I don't know, on Asgardia or whatever. Again, these two organizations aren't related at all, okay, just to be clear, in case anyone gets worried about that. But Asgardia, I think, is also a very interesting idea. Like I said, I'm technically a citizen of it, but they are talking about this. They have their own little blog, but I also put links in the show notes for this story, as well as from the MIT review, just in case you think Asgardia is having a flight of fancy here. No, not at all. This is something that scientists are really, really working on. What the fuck are we talking about? Well, here we go. New Internet of Things made of gut bacteria. And what does gut bacteria mean? Well, it's effectively E. coli, right? Ooh, what is this? Yeah, let's read it. What does bacterium have in common with an Internet of Things device? At first glance, it looks like apples and oranges, but that's a wrong first impression. They actually have more in common than you'd expect to see. Authors of a paper take two typical and simple representatives of the microbe and computer worlds in order to compare their functions and abilities. On one hand, there is E. coli, a bacterium found in gut microbiota, as well as in the environment or even food. The bacterium can be grown and cultured easily and inexpensively in a laboratory setting and has been intensively investigated for over 6 decades. On the other hand is a single board computer like the Raspberry Pi with add-on components, a common standardized workhorse of open source computing. Stanley breaking in, it most certainly is. Love the Raspberry Pi, big fan. Reading on. Researchers admit that their analyses is oversimplified. However, their goal is to show basic analogy between a bacterial and a IoT device, as well as highlight main features of bacteria that could enable rich exploration of microbes in the context of IoT. Stanley breaking in. Yeah, we're basically talking about biologically based IoT. Now, Internet of crap, Internet of targets, Internet of things. Just pick some negative word, but whatever. Let's keep reading. Maybe they've got something here. Let's see. Let's explore the features one by one. First, we need sensors. Bacteria have no problem with that. E. coli can sense an extremely wide range of stimuli, light, chemicals, mechanical stress, electromagnetic fields, temperature, acidity, to name a few. Then let's talk about actuators. And these are all things required for a very simple, basically, like they said, a Raspberry Pi, a simple SoC board. Anyway, but bacteria can respond to the stimuli in very different ways. The most obvious one is to wag the tail. Of course, E. coli doesn't have a furry tail like a dog. Instead, it uses a special motile organelle called flagella to move in the environment. Another way to respond involves chemicals. Microbe produces specialized proteins. Moving on to the control unit, memory, and processor, bacterium is quite the memory card. It stores tons of information in its circular chromosome and numerous plasmids, basically, DNA molecules. And we've talked, Stanley breaking in, we talked about this, of using DNA to store literally terabytes, hundreds of terabytes of data. This is stuff that's already been developed. This paper is fairly fresh, but some of these ideas, or where these ideas can go, are already being, at the very least, they've been attempted, worked on, developed, maybe not implemented yet, but it does point at something that we've talked about for many years on Sovryn Tech, but we'll keep going with the story for now. The DNA not only offers the storage of data, it also encodes instructions that can be translated into viable functions via small organelles called ribosomes. While chromosomes contain mostly instructions for cell functioning, plasmids are commonly used to introduce a wide range of genes into the organism. In other words, plasmids can be used for function customization and storage of new data. Finally, we need a transceiver, a component designed to allow both the transmission and reception of communication. Because IoT is meaningless when it's offline, right? Of course, that's also the reason that I think it's ultimately meaningless, is because it has to be online. So it's automatically problematic as far as privacy and security goes. But whatever, we'll keep going. Bacterial cellular membranes work perfectly. It allows transportation of molecules inside and outside the cell. Also, pilus, a hair-like appendage found on the surface of the bacteria, allows microbes to share information with each other. Basically, two pili form a bridge for the transfer of genetic material between two microbes. Such process is called conjugation and is a simple, though elegant and efficient form of communication. Communication between bacterial communities can be performed via molecular signaling. So see, they're laying this all out, that this is basically how it could work. Okay, that's the whole thing that they're going on and saying that it could all be, it can be translated into DNA and then it can go back and forth and it can get decoded back. This is where it gets interesting. Well, here, let me read this part here. Also, bacteria can be used as information carriers. Digital information needs to be translated into DNA, which Stanley Briggen, and we've already done that. Okay, scientists have already achieved that. That's already happened. And later, it can be decoded into the digital format. Theoretically, it's a good analogy, but what are the potential applications of bacteria in context of IoT? Microbes could be programmed and deployed in different surroundings to sense for toxins and pollutants and gather data. In healthcare, bacteria could be programmed to treat diseases. Microbes can be programmed to reach a targeted organ in the body and release required chemicals like hormones in the right place at the right time. Are there any disadvantages? Sounds like each and every one should be getting their own petri dish and experimenting on bacteria. Not so fast. First, bacteria has no GPS. This makes it extremely problematic to track. This might be a good thing. You can encode a message, but you are never sure where it ends up. Secondly, there are mutations with outcomes that are impossible to predict. And finally, microbes can pose a real threat to natural ecosystems. All of these factors need to be taken into account, but admit it, the idea itself is quite outstanding. Well, maybe not. Now, I mean, it does get interesting. Like they're already trying to, and this is the nature of any new technological development, even though this is arguably, I guess it'd be biotech at the end of the day. But they always try to sell you on how it's going to save lives. That's how they have to do it first. But is that usually why anybody develops something? Not unless there's like a lot of money to be made off of that. I suppose one could argue that maybe that's occurring here, but I mean, it has to be a lot of money because, something to grasp is, and this happens across many industries, many different fields of study, many different businesses. Sometimes you might wonder, okay, for an example, sometimes you might wonder, why? I don't know, pick some company that had a massive data leak. You'd say, why weren't they going with best practices, requiring people to, set up certain passwords, or I don't know, if you think biometrics is a best practice, I don't, but if you happen to think that, I have them set up that, or everybody carries around YubiKeys and all that stuff. Here's the thing. There are very smart people, okay, and I'm not the only one who knows this or has said it. But it's true. There are very smart people that run these, or at least they're smart mathematically, that are doing the math. They're far better at math than you and I are probably. At these businesses, I don't know, Target, take your pick of the company, who say, okay, this is what it would cost if we got everybody to engage, or if we forced everybody into best security practices for their account, say their Target shopping account or something. And then, so that's one spreadsheet. And then there's the spreadsheet, shall we say, right next to it, that says this is what it would cost if we had a catastrophic data leak. And the data leak, if it costs less, especially significantly less, if the fallout from the data leak doesn't cost as much as what it would take to get everybody on board with the best security practices on their accounts, what do you think Target's going to do, or whatever company? They're just going to let the data leak happen because it's more cost effective. Okay, so understand that you could say, there are concepts out there, okay, that you can develop, say in biotech. One is like if you can't patent it and thus guarantee that some investor who's going to, or a grant, whoever ends up making money off of this deal, okay, because pure science basically doesn't happen unless it's in like someone's apartment, and certainly I've known people that do that, and Satan bless them. I think they're wonderful. Okay, pure science. There's always monetary incentive. Is that a problem? Well, regardless, there's always monetary incentive. Somebody has to make money off of it. Somebody has to fund the research. Grants do just such and so much. Whatever. We're not going to go down that road. But understand, okay, that if you can't patent it, which I'm sure there's a way to patent this E. coli. That sounds insane, but I'm sure there is. Just like you do, you patent, GMOs, right? Someone's going to be able to patent this. So there's going to be money made off of that. But here's the rub. And that is, unless somehow, like this can be used on a grand enough scale to save enough lives. The math all has to add up. Okay? If it can save, if coming up with this, basically this IOT that could be, injected into people and used to cure diseases and whatever else, okay? And not just people, maybe even plants and crops and who knows what. There's all kinds of interesting things that could be done here. Of course, you're opening Pandora's box, but let's just say that was the idea and that's what they're going to run with, okay? If it wasn't at a large enough scale, okay, and it did not have some kind of return, some kind of ROI, they weren't going to do it. Nobody does things to just save lives, okay? For example, there is the potential, you can get kind of into more like naturalistic ideas where people talk about, oh, turmeric can do this and do this for people and do this for people. Well, one thing is you can't really patent turmeric. There's no money to invest in turmeric, so you're not going to get people. You're not going to get companies. You're not going to, sure as fuck not going to get big pharma, but you're not going to anybody get a grant around turmeric. You're not going to get all this crap that's going to happen around turmeric. And let's say turmeric only cured something within, 10,000 people. Okay. There's no money to be made, even though you could save those 10,000 people, say 100% from whatever is ailing them, just from them having turmeric. There's no money in schlepping off to them and advertising into, getting it all put through the FDA and whatever else, to have them have turmeric, even though it could save these people completely. There's no money in it, so nobody does it. My point being is that even if E. coli could do X for so many people, if there is not an ROI on it, I guarantee you it's not going to happen. Okay. I know, and I appreciate this and I respect this. A lot of people are very much, even in the blockchain space, there's great people who I consider friends. There's great people out there who are working they are just knee deep in the burgeoning cannabis industry right now. And I get it, I understand. But I think, let's be clear here, the reason that the floodgates got opened up on cannabis, while I think there are people in that industry who are genuinely trying to help people with pain and maybe save lives and do whatever else, that could come along, that could potentially come along with that. Let's be clear here that the reason that the cannabis floodgates opened up is because at least the American economy, the United States, they needed a new boomtown. Otherwise, everything was probably, shit was just going to crash. And so they needed something for a ton of these investor dollars to go into, develop, work on it for 25 years or so and do the research. And then you have to come up with something else. Okay. Just like blockchain saved Silicon Valley from its bubble popping, cannabis, I think ultimately was an industry where there was enough of a thing to make it an industry and thus come in like an economic savior. It sure as fuck didn't get legalized because, suddenly, the powers that be thought, we feel so bad, and these nasty things that were said about marijuana, they're just not true. So you know what? Here, we're going to legalize it because, we fucked up. We're so sorry. No, it has nothing to do with that at all. It has to do because they needed a new industry to get it to invest in, and not just, American investors, but certainly international ones as well. Okay, now, we're kind of on a snaking trail here, but I say all this, okay, to highlight the point that whenever, these kinds of new ideas come out, they want to sell you on how it's going to save lives. They jump right to that, just like this article did. The MIT article does a little different. And where, it can do this amazing thing and shit like that. Well, anytime you read that sort of thing for any new development, medical, scientific, technological, whatever, I want you to count to 10 backwards. Okay? Do a countdown. How about that? Breathe while you're doing that backwards countdown. Okay? Breathe. Or it's not backwards. If it's a countdown, it's not backwards. Breathe. And then say to yourself, who could make money off of this? Okay, now I'm not saying follow the money. That's because I think that kind of concept is crap. I am saying that, can you imagine where there is a few million or $1 billion that could be made off of this, perhaps genuinely helpful thing getting unleashed to the masses for a premium? And I think you're going to find that a lot of ideas, especially a lot of the ones that come out of Silicon Valley, but even a lot of concepts that maybe you'd read about on Phys.org or like this, with the E. coli IOT, I think you're gonna think about it and you go, no, that's not going to help the system that we live in, so it's not going to get used for that. Right. So then what is it going to get used for? Okay. Now, the warning, I'm glad that as Guardia brought up, the blog here brought up, was that, hey, you just go unleashing all this bacteria with this very specific programming, and because of mutations, you don't know what the fuck you're going to end up with, right? Because no human is as smart as evolution. And that's a fact. That is absolutely true. And that's a problem. So there should be concerns around that is a bad idea. Just on the mutation level alone, this should not become a thing. Okay. Now, could it get a little more interesting to where, maybe somehow they figure out the GPS aspect of this? In fact, that's even funny that they were worried about that. Like, they knew that without tracking, that it's kind of pointless. That's just, just look at the wizard behind the curtain, right? And see he's not a wizard. That's pulling all of it away to show what's really going on here. Oh shit, we can't track anything. We're not going to be able to get usable data out of this. And so even if it could save lives, even if these programmed E. coli could, cure cancers or who knows what. Yeah, but because we can't feed big data, we can't track it. So we can't, make the NSA jobs easy, or make the NSA's job easier or whatever, because we can't do that. This isn't going to go to market. Interesting stuff that you developed, and I'm sure we'll have some very special use cases when we need to take down a country somewhere around the world. But otherwise, it has no actual value to us, even if it could save tons of lives. And I'm not saying that it could. Like I said, I'm saying this is a bad idea, straight up. All right? But that said, even if it was a good idea, it's not going to get used for what you think it would be. It's just not. So now the other part to this is that this actually fits in with ideas that I'm fairly supportive of, okay, that will probably never see the light of day, or if they do, it's certainly not going to be by people that live within the varying systems and nation states that we live in. But Dr. Paul Stamets, not the bullshit from Discovery. Oh, man, real quick, and I mean Star Trek Discovery, real quick. Great listener, shared something with me on Twitter. You can follow me there at Sovryn Tech, and you can actually see it. Somebody took a screenshot or a screen capture of the code that Michael Burnham on Star Trek Discovery, that she was working on in the engine room, or the mycelial engine room, whatever, aboard the USS Discovery. And they were like trying to see, okay, what code is she looking at? And it was like Win32 APIs. And the person's like, oh, great, the Discovery runs on Windows. And I'm thinking, well, no fucking wonder that it ends up in the mirror universe, or the mycelia drive keeps failing, or there's all these other kinds of fucking problems. They're running Windows. No shit. How dumb. That's so much more insult. That show's so terrible, but that's so much more insult on that. It's just salt on that wound. That's what it is. It's an insult, but it's salt on the wound of that show, because it's such a piece of shit. Anyway, the very real Dr. Paul Stamets, of course, who wrote the tremendous book, Mycelium Running, which I recommend everybody read, he talked about how with mycelia, basically with a network of mycelia, and kind of the show Star Trek Discovery runs off of this concept, but it takes it to crazy places. But he effectively said that mycelia works almost like the Earth's internet, right? It works like a network. And it's an interesting idea. And it falls in with something that, I'm fairly supportive of and have wanted for a while. And that is, organic machines. For example, using DNA to store data, if we had, imagine, and this business with the E. coli kind of points at that this is possible, okay, where you could actually grow effectively a computer that works like a computer. Would you have, some kind of organic material keyboard that you would type on and all this? Well, when we start to talk about UI, I think there should always be some kind of physical UI that you can interact with. I think we could get pretty creative with that. I'm not going to do so here, but regardless, this notion of growing computers and of organic machines, if you want to get into, say, a science fiction context, something like the Vorlons from Babylon 5, right, where they actually, their starships are alive, they are living ships, they're actually, they are effectively animal life, and they have agency, as in they choose when they want to die, and so on. Going in that direction, I think is a fascinating thing for a few different reasons. The easy one that people could point out, or that I'd like to point out, is that, if you want to get a little nightmare scenario about it, in the future, the concept of electromagnetic pulses, EMP weapons, or not even weapons being used against you, but say solar flares, right? That could, or solar storms that could generate and this has happened in our very recent history. Electromagnetic pulses from solar storms from the sun could literally wipe out communication grids, all of our electronics. It could be a really nightmare scenario. So having, but the thing is that that same EMP doesn't affect us, even though arguably one could make the case, kind of like what was made with the E. coli, is that we are living machines. We are, organic. We are biological machines. Okay, we just have, blood instead. We do have electrical impulses going on within us, but regardless, an EMP doesn't bother us. Not really. Not in the way that it affects, electronics. And so the idea of having organic electronics, if you will, or organic machines, I think is a great idea, just to be able to survive, the rigors of the universe. Now, granted, I get it why a lot of people might not necessarily invest in that idea, because, much of our economy is reliant upon the idea that what you purchase will eventually fail or degrade and you need to buy another. Yes. Yes. No. All right. If you don't think planned obsolescence is a real thing, Apple batteries, iPhone batteries, right? Planned obsolescence is absolutely, I'm not going to name names, but it's absolutely a real thing. The idea of making things not as sturdy as they used to be. And companies, major companies that deal in the billions of dollars are aware of this, and they pay hefty contracts. And I have been engaged in handing over these very contracts where they will pay companies. And it's not because it's more expensive to renovate, say, or retrofit, or refit their entire operation, their entire business operation. No, they want such and such what term? Let's say terminal. They want a terminal, even if that terminal is 30 years old or 40 years old. They will pay the premium to, just so that they can have this solid piece of kit, this terminal that just works. They will pay the premium to get the whatever parts are needed to get produced, even though nobody makes them anymore. They will pay for all of that to get done, just because in their mind, for things to work as so efficiently, functionally, and reliably as they have been used to for decades, they will pay the premium to have these machines continue, or we'll have a repair contract or whatever to make it keep on going, because they know that the new shit that they get is not going to be as reliable. We're throughout much of this subject, we have ironically touched on this, the idea that it all comes down to the bottom line. It all comes down to the red line, and that not in cars. It comes down to the red line of, if I do X, does it cost more or less than Y? And it's all cost. Not about lives, not about, what's easiest for people or any of this kind of crap, or safest or whatever. It's all about that bottom line. And it really is. You can say in a freed market that, that wouldn't be so. Okay, well, we're not there. This is the world we live in right now. I don't like it any more than you do, but be honest with yourself about it. Okay? So again, I don't think that there's any real financial incentive for people to come up with these kinds of devices. Not really. But it is, this points at that is, even though they want to use it within the context of IoT, because again, and we've hinted at this on the show for years, that the ultimate goal, and this is a big part of 5G, this is a big part of a lot of what Microsoft is even doing. We've talked about that in episodes over the past year, where basically they just want computing. They want, they want computing to be completely ubiquitous, and not ubiquitous as in, one laptop per child or something like that. They want a chip in fucking everything, in the bricks. Every brick that a building is made out of should have a chip in it. They just want computers everywhere. That's really what 5G is all about. Okay. So I get it, understand that that's the ultimate goal. And if they could do this organically, well, then there is incentive there. But then notice what the rub is. The rub is that you can't track it, and then it becomes meaningless to them, right? Yeah. But they want ubiquitous computing. They want computing where, and part of how they would sell this to you is that, okay, there's a chip in everything, but that means that you can talk to Alexa wherever you are, whenever you are. Of course, that also means Alexa can listen to you wherever you are, whenever you are. But I guess most people don't give a shit, and they're all right with that. But take out the IoT aspect of this. And there's still the mutation concerns, but that's more with when you're injecting this into certain parts of the ecology. Not the economy, but the ecology. But take a lot of that away, and you do end up with, actually, there is a way. And this is what... So I'm against this. I'm against the concept of IoT. I have a saying... I have an old saying in the Bitcoin and blockchain community. And it's my saying. It gets attributed to me when people say it on podcasts, and they still do to this day. And that is that just it goes like this. Just because you put, if it was a bad idea, here we go. If it was a bad idea off of the blockchain, it doesn't become a good idea once you put it on the blockchain. For example, voting. But that's my point. Now, IoT, just because you suddenly do it in an interesting, novel way, like in bacteria, okay, like in E. coli, just because you have that doesn't mean that suddenly IoT became a good idea. No, not at all. So I'm against this just in the abstract, regardless of what the methodology, or the infrastructure is ultimately, or the mechanism, I suppose we could say, even though it's biological. But the idea that this points at that, actually organic computers and, these kind of like literally biological computers, grown computers are a possibility, like I have theorized on this show for at least 7 of its 8 years. Yeah, this does point at that. And I do think that's particularly fascinating. So whether or not we're going to see anything ever come of that, I don't know. But it might actually be possible. Anyway, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo! Hey, if you have a project that needs reliable cryptocurrency data, check out blocktap.io. Blocktap.io is a universal cryptocurrency API. You can get historical prices for Bitcoin and other digital assets that you can use to build charts and do market analysis. Blockchain data is also indexed, so you can get transaction statistics, address balances, and more for Bitcoin and other networks. Blocktap.io is free for personal use, and you don't even need to create an account to access the API. To get started, try some of the example queries on the homepage at blocktap.io. Again, that's blocktap.io, blocktap.io, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
Now I'm kind of going to throw a double here at you with HackSec. Because I want to bolster a point that I made in the last segment, and then I have a new story that I actually hinted at in episode... Holy fuck, what episode are we on? Oh, that is episode 354. So in episode 353, that I ended up covering, and I want to talk about that. But let's talk about, first off, IoT, because before anybody thinks, because believe me, I've gotten the emails where people thought, in fact, this is referencing episode 352 as well as 353, that people thought I went too far, saying on tracking, and that basically, like, I had people email me. I could pull up the emails. I had people email me saying that, and that's why I made the cave joke at the beginning at the top of the show, is because people basically feel like I am telling them that just about everything, or that everything, that they didn't say just about, they said everything, that everything in the modern world today is out to kill us and out to get us. I kind of want to say, no, that's not what I said, but no. But they think that, I'm telling them everything is horrible and all technology is bad. And I don't know, like I even had somebody say I was a Luddite, and look, I've gotten accused of that a million times over the years on the show. No. In case you didn't hear at the beginning of the episode, I was talking about how great it is that we got the Commodore 64 back. That's awesome. Okay, I'm not espousing that at all. But in case you think that's what I'm saying, and that my stance against IoT, just Stallion, you are too hardcore about this privacy, you go too far. Well, I have something to share with you. And this was actually sent to me by a Sovryn Tech listener, and it's a brilliant point, and it's from the FBI. As in, the full-blooded Italians. No, I'm sorry. No. I mean the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But it's the FBI out of Portland. This is from an event, I believe, that the FBI held. This is right off of FBI.gov. You understand? This is not me being crazy. This is not some other security researcher who just you think is off the fucking wall telling you that your smartphone's a problem. This is coming from the FBI. I want to read this here, and this is about IoT, and it's titled Tech Tuesday, Internet of Things. It's from December 3rd, 2019. This is fresh. Here we go. Welcome to the Oregon FBI's Tech Tuesday segment. See, the FBI has a blog. Building a digital defense in your Internet of Things. In your Internet of Things. Anyway, last week we talked about smart TVs. I guess they talked about smart TVs. And how that built-in internet connection can allow manufacturers, streaming services, and even hackers an open door into your home. I want to stop for a second on this. Okay. Now, granted, who's going to take advantage of that open door? The government. So there's an incredible irony in the FBI. This is kind of a pot kettle black situation here. There's an incredible irony in this. But the FBI is basically, when I warn you that the government is going to do against you, and also corporations, because we live under corporatism, okay, for the FBI to admit, that's going to happen. I mean, I say this way too often over the history of the show. Who's crazy now? So any of these devices, even the smart TV, and I've argued for we should be able to buy dumb TVs for a long time. Apparently the FBI agrees. My point to you with IoT has always been every single internet connected device, okay, or Bluetooth connect, whatever, okay, every interconnected device that you own is one more attack vector into your digital life, which there is today in the 21st century. There's really no separation between your digital life and your meat space life. So it's just as important. How you manage your digital life is that they are intermingled. One affects the other. And you need to take both of them very seriously. Just like you wouldn't drink arsenic. Well, I don't think you should fucking go on the internet without a VPN. But whatever. Okay, let's keep on reading here. So we're talking about smart TVs. This week, we are looking at the larger Internet of Things. Basically, this means everything else in your home that connects to the World Wide Web. If you look at the holiday wish list that your kids, spouse, and parents conveniently dropped on you last week at Thanksgiving, most everything on there probably makes the cut. Still breaking in. The FBI is even aware that, holy shit, everything you buy is probably interconnected. Who's crazy now? Not me. Digital assistants, smartwatches, fitness trackers, home security devices, thermostats, refrigerators, and even light bulbs are all on the list. The FBI, understand, they're doing this blog post. We're going to read it. They're doing this blog post as a warning. The FBI is warning you about light bulbs. Stop telling me I'm fucking insane. Reading on. Add to that all the fun stuff. Remote-controlled robots, games and gaming systems, interactive dolls. I think for the FBI, those might be very different things. And talking stuffed animals. Well, the list seems endless. What these all have in common is that they send and receive data. But do you know how that data is collected and where it is going? Another concern is that hackers can use that innocent device to do a virtual drive-by of your digital life. Stealing, breaking in, of course, those hackers are probably also employed by the FBI, but, let's move on. Unsecured devices can allow hackers a path into your router, giving the bad guy access to everything else on your home network that you thought was secure. Are private pictures and passwords safely stored on your computer? Don't be so sure. Here's what you can do to build that digital defense. 1. Change the device's factory settings from the default password. A simple internet search should tell you how, and if you can't find the information, consider moving on to another product. So the FBI can say, don't buy this, boycott this, but if the Golden Stallion tells you you shouldn't buy X next product from X next company, you're going too far. No actual person would do this. Only the FBI would recommend it to fucking everybody in the country. They get to get away with that, but me, I'm insane. Right. Reading on. Number 2. Not shit. Number 2. Passwords should be as long as possible and unique for IoT devices. Yeah, sure. Many connected devices are supported by mobile apps on your phone. These apps could be running in the background and using default permissions that you never realized you approved. Know that kind of personal information those apps are collecting and say no to privilege requests that don't make sense. Great advice, FBI. I wonder if they won't listen to an anarchist like me, maybe they'll listen to some authoritarians. Maybe you'll think that the FBI might have somebody maybe you think I'm stupid. Maybe that's the score. Well, do you think the FBI might have hired some people with some intellect? There's got to be somebody there. I mean, there's a great saying from KSR, Kim Stanley Robinson. There's a great saying. He says, you can't get 5 people together without one of them being a fucking idiot. Well, I think that's true, but also, I don't think you can get that many people together without one of them being some kind of fucking genius. And I'm sure that they would, recognize and bring this stuff up, because this stuff is, today, it is inarguable that this is going on. And the FBI is even warning you about it. Let's keep reading. Let's go to number 4. Secure your network. Your fridge. Your fridge and your laptop should not be on the same network. You want to cry. You just want to cry. I want to walk up. My dad is sadly, he was a brilliant guy. He was never much of a programmer, in that sense. He understood computers, he repaired them, he had a fine grasp of how electronics and or electricity works. He had a lot of friends, though, that I had the pleasure of growing up with. My uncle was actually a fantastic programmer. I would love to go back in time when I was a teenager, and I was fucking around on Prodigy. And I want to say to them, and even to my dad, my dad would probably give the same reaction. I want to say to them, guys, I think in 20 years, I think we're going to have to secure our fridge and our laptop on the same network. And I can just imagine the jaw drops, the look of pure horror in these brilliant guys' eyes. And say, because, I don't even think half this shit was in science fiction at the time. And just, not until the 5th or the 6th day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which, predictive programming. But, I'd love to see that look on their face when I want to utter that sentence to them. I would love to pass this note along from the FBI to them 20 years ago, and I want them to read it from the FBI and just have them go, what the fuck? Who in the right goddamn mind would connect a fridge to a network that your laptop's connected to? They'd say that. I guarantee it. Because it's just dumb. Now, why do companies do it? If programmers from the time of the dinosaurs knew that this would be a bad idea, why do they do it? Well, we've been talking about it this whole episode. It's how much does X cost? How much does Y cost? Oh, just connect it to the infrastructure connect the fridge to the infrastructure that already exists, known as the World Wide Web or the internet or whatever protocol they happen to be using within it. Well, that's a hell of a lot cheaper than developing our entire own protocol for that shit to run on. So guess what we're going to do? Privacy, security, lives be damned. We're going to connect it to the internet. Oh, good. The number at the bottom of the spreadsheet is black and not red. Nice work, Hammerhand. You're getting a promotion out of R&D. Should we finish up the list? Here we go. But, because it is the year 2019, we do live in the Blade Runner future. I swear. What? You don't think Mark Zuckerberg's a Nexus 5? You give me a break. Or a Nexus 6? He's got Roy Batty written all over him, baby. Woo. So, because we are in the year 2019, yes, okay, do me a favor. If you're listening to the show, I don't know how well you've been listening if you have this, but if you're listening and you happen to have this, please do not have your fridge on the same network as your laptop. You do that favor for me? You hook me up? You do me a solid? Thanks. Golden Stallion. Love you. XOXO. There you go. What the fuck? All right, here's the last recommendation from the FBI. Not from insane man Brian Sovryn. No. From the FBI. Make sure all your devices are updated regularly. If automatic updates are available for software, hardware, and operating systems, turn them on. Yeah, in general, that's a great thing. And we've given all of the same advice, except for I was just hopeful that nobody that listened to me would fall for the trap, because I said, and The free market, Brian, the free market. I said years ago, let's send the fucking market signal and tell IoT to, go where the sun doesn't fucking shine ever. But we're still getting it. In fact, you're hard pressed to, if you live somewhere besides LA or San Francisco, you're hard pressed to find somebody, frankly, who thinks half of what IoT does is a good idea. But somehow our devices just keep getting sold to us interconnected. We keep running into problems. Shit keeps on failing. Google Chromecast can get accessed by anybody, and suddenly somebody's feeding us Human Centipede 2, and we don't know how the fuck we ended. We didn't even know Human Centipede was a thing. But then suddenly there it is on our big 55-inch screen because of our Google Chromecast that has no fucking security whatsoever. And there it is, ass to mouth, and you are staring at it in awe. Somehow we can't buy things without it. But I was told that, the market can speak. The market can't speak when you are force-fed shit. When it becomes law, and I bet it is, when it becomes law. I mean, again, it's the irony that the FBI is calling all this, but it becomes practical law for some kind of, chip to get tossed into. I mean, just wait for this to happen, because when 5G starts, because that's the argument that's going to get made, is that, 5G is saving so much bandwidth, and we can sell this bandwidth to be used for other things, and that is the government, because the FCC regulates bandwidth. We can sell this to other companies and make money and have the use for other things. So you just wait. The law will come down that everything has to have a 5G chip in it. And even if you wanted to buy a television that didn't have a 5G chip in it, good fucking luck, Buster. You're not going to find one. Oh, you want to go to eBay on there? Nice try. Will not ship to Arizona. Next. This is the last line of the segment. As always, if you have been victimized by a cyber fraud, be sure to report it to the FBI's Internet Crime Compliance Center at ic3.gov or call your local FBI office. Let me grab my phone here. Hello, FBI. Yeah, I've been victimized by cyber fraud. By who? By the FBI. Yeah. Yeah, no, you. Yeah, but aren't you like one office? What do you mean you have different offices? So wait, but how do you handle that internally? If one of your office, if my local office, if I was engaged in cyber fraud, if cyber fraud was committed against me by your office in Washington, but your office in New York, like you're the local office, I guess. I mean, can you actually like go arrest other people in the FBI? Can you actually like make a case? No. Yeah, but then who do I report this to? That can come and arrest you, or that can come and shut you down? Nobody. It's all the government. Well, could Silicon Valley save me? Oh, they work with you? Oh, all right. Well, I tried. You told me to call you. I mean, I'm just following the instructions on this blog post. It's a great blog post, by the way. Okay, no, that's fine. I have no recourse. Yeah, I need a new refrigerator, but yeah, I know they're all interconnected. I was just reading your work. Yeah, no, they don't sell one that doesn't have Bluetooth. No, nowhere. Yeah, but that's your Washington office that they hacked my refrigerator. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wanted my nudes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for nothing. Bye. Sorry, I was just talking to the FBI. Tried to call them on them, but that doesn't work. So anyway. All of this is to illustrate. Did I go too long with that? Whatever. It's my show. I'm going to experiment. All of this is to illustrate. Maybe I should add in the voices from Lake Charlie Brown, coming in on the other side. No, it's okay. All of this is to illustrate that even the FBI knows that, hey, guess what? They're basically saying there's a 100% chance that this device is not secure. And that is the problem with IoT in general. There is, listen to me like you've never listened to me before. There is no right way to do IoT. There is no secure way to do IoT. There is no financial incentive to do IoT right in the first place. There is none. Not when most of the IoT devices you bought for $20 and they came out of China. And they will never get a firmware update in their life. There is no right way. Do you hear me? Okay. It should be my final statement on IoT. Fuck. I should really end the episode right here. But no, there's more I want to talk about. Now, but talking about, before we get into the next subject during HackSec, talking about how to do things right. Here's a company that does things right, and I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious. Sovryn Tech sponsor, Vaultoro. That's Vault. Vaults, very good things. Security. You think security when you hear Vault. Security is good. There is no guarantee of safety in life, but security and your efforts towards it is good. How about a nice little vault that deals in gold and cryptocurrencies? That is the service, and you can go and get a gold wallet. Whoa, you're wondering, wait, Vault, what about the Oro? What does Oro mean? Oro means gold in Spanish. Did you know that? Gold Vault. That's basically what it's saying. Vaultoro.com. This company, this business has your hookup. They have been in the blockchain space for almost 5 years now. 2015 they started this, and that is an eternity in the Bitcoin and blockchain space. And if you want to deal in gold and cryptos, have that gold for the hedge, have those cryptos for the future that they genuinely should and will be, jump on it at Vaultoro.com. That's Vaultoro.com. Okay, and you can go there. You're going to get your gold wallet opened up in seconds, and there is all kinds of fun that you can have with cryptocurrencies once you get started at Vaultoro.com. I love them. I trust them, and I mean that. I fucking trust them. And I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Vaultoro.com. Link is in the show notes. If you just in case you didn't get the spelling, Vaultoro.com, and let them know that the Golden Stallion sent you there to get golden, baby. Now, let's get into our next story here. Our next story is one that I actually hinted at in last week's episode of Sovryn Tech. I can't imagine why people would think that this is crazy. It's being reported. I mean, certainly Forbes is flubbed now and again, including actually in the blockchain space, and we've covered that throughout 2019, actually. But this is pretty straightforward. December 11, 2019, being reported, Google hands feds 1,500 phone locations in unprecedented geofence search. Here we go. 2 dead dogs and more than $50,000 in damaged property were just some of the casualties of arsons carried out across Milwaukee, Wisconsin throughout 2018 and 2019. To find the perpetrators, officers from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, demanded, I love how alcohol and tobacco are in there, demanded Google supply records of user devices in the respective locations at the times the arsons took place, Forbes has learned. Though federal agents had used the technique before, they'd never received such a data haul back from Google. Stallion breaking in, we talk about corporatism, how it's governments and corporations like Google working together. That's corporatism. Don't support one, because when you support one, you're supporting the other because they're fucking bed buddies, they're kissing cousins, and that should be seen as incestuous and weird anyway. Reading on, the requests outlined in 2 search warrants obtained by Forbes demanded to know which specific Google customers were located in areas covering 29,387 square meters, or 3 hectares, during a total of 9 hours for the 4 separate incidents. Unbeknownst to many Google users, if they have location history turned on, their whereabouts are stored by the tech giant in a database called Sensor Vault. Stallion breaking in, and while in my Dark Android book, I actually recommend turning location history off. Oh, I thought it was just so benign. It told me when I was going to be near the movie theater and when, what traffic was like on my way to work. It's such a nice thing. Oh, you just ended up becoming part of a criminal investigation because of a fucking soft switch on your smartphone. Way to go, Jack. In this case, I was going to say, Google stores that shit anyway. In this case, Google found 1,494 device identifiers in sensor vaults, sending them to the ATF to comb through. In terms of numbers, that's unprecedented for this form of search. It illustrates how Google can pinpoint a large number of mobile phones in a brief period of time and hand over that information to the government. Previous Forbes reporting has shown searches across far wider areas, but this is like very tight-knit. Okay, so Stanley breaking in real quick. This is, all right, wait, let me read this next paragraph, then we'll talk. To investigators, this kind of geofence demand is useful, allowing them to go through the data trove provided by Google, look for devices of interest, such as a known suspect's phone, and ask for more personal information on the user of that mobile. Now, let me talk about this for a second. Think of this, if you're trying to picture, like, wait, what's happening here? What's happening here is something akin to, maybe minus the sonar. It is something akin to, though don't think that this doesn't happen either necessarily. This is akin to in the movie, what was it, The Dark Knight, right? Remember with Heath Ledger as the Joker, okay? Far better than that horse shit that came out a couple months ago. But anyway, in that, Batman, because he's going to save people so we can break all the rules and we can not give a shit about human liberties. Batman uses all the smartphones around the world to track down and find the Joker in this one. That is geofencing, okay? Watch the end of the movie if you want to understand and watch the whole movie, actually, it's great. But watch the end of it if you want to get a grasp of what this kind of looks like. Kind of. I'm not saying it creates that sonar-style picture that Batman got in that movie, but it's the same concept. Or a similar concept, I should say. Reading on, privacy concerns, but it's also the kind of search that's been making pro-privacy folk anxious over the last year. Such data grabs, also referred to as reverse location searches, which is a lot better than calling it geofencing because it's more accurate. See, the police give Google a time frame and an area on Google Maps within which to find every Google user within. Google then looks through its Sensor Vault database of user locations taken from devices running the tech giant services like Google Maps or anything that requires the location history feature be turned on. So, Stanley breaking in here. Not using Google Maps any longer is not a solution. Location history, if that's even a solution, and I don't think it is the solution. So remember, Waze is owned by Google, and most map apps will use that location history, soft switch the feature. Okay. Anyway, so, but you could turn it off. Yes. Maybe you feel better about yourself. Okay. If you think that that's really stopping geofencing. All right. I'm not saying don't turn it off. Yes, do turn it off. I'm just saying, let's be aware here that it's probably still going on anyway. The police then look through the list, decide which devices are of interest to the investigation, and ask for subscriber information that includes more detailed data such as a name, email address when they signed up to Google services, and which ones they used. Oh, but I thought this is all just harmless stuff I was giving to Google. God damn it, now. Look what it's being used for. It's unclear, reading on, whether or not Google handed over any identifying information. It's unclear. Read that as, of course they did. But to Jerome Greco, a public defender in the Digital Forensic Unit of the Legal Aid Society, it's a sign that geofence warrants are overly broad and endanger user privacy. Quote, the number of phones identified in that area shows two key points. One, it demonstrates a sample of how many people's minute-by-minute movements Google is precisely tracking. Proof, folks, that Google is tracking this. Stanley breaking in on that. You didn't believe me. You thought it was crazy. You said, wow, they couldn't possibly be collecting all that data. Yes, they can, and at the very least, they can get it when they need it. And that's a problem. Let's continue on with what Jerome Greco had to say. 2, it shows the unconstitutional, that piece of paper. It shows the unconstitutional nature of reverse location search warrants because they inherently invade the privacy of numerous people who everyone agrees are unconnected to the crime being investigated for the mere possibility that it may help identify a suspect, end quote. Even if it's just a possibility. If only you could only save one life. One life! Isn't that worth giving up all of your human liberties? The ATF, which filed the search warrants in Wisconsin, said it couldn't comment on ongoing investigations. Neither of the two suspects named in the warrants have been charged in federal court at the time of publication. As for its use of Google geofence searches, a spokesperson said, quote, "To ensure the safety of our special agents, and other law enforcement partners with whom we work, ATF does not release information regarding certain law enforcement techniques to the public," end quote. They don't even have to tell you what's going on. Fortunately, like we were just reading, the FBI already told you everything. Guess what? All of this shit can and will be used against you. As we always say, any and all data that you interconnect with the rest of the world can and will be used against you. Forbes obtained another search warrant that indicated Google is trying to fight back against overly broad government requests, so I'm sure. I mean, they're fighting back by what? What, you leave your underwear on when you bend over and grab the ankles? Give me a fucking break. Reading on. But still, appears to be handing over innocent people's information as well as legitimate suspect data. In another, a previously unknown geofence search, federal officers wanted Google to share information on devices in the vicinity of a bank robbery in Allenton, Wisconsin in April this year. Initially, Google deemed the area the government wanted it to search too wide. By pushing back, Google convinced investigators to reduce the search area from a 400-meter radius to 50. Oh, thank you, Google. Jeez. Thank you. You know, you got it down by 350 meters. You know, Google is really out there looking out for us, aren't they? I mean, they really are. Reading on. I hope you heard the sarcasm. Google then returned phone identifiers for 6 devices. The government asked for personal details of the individual users for all 6, which the tech giant duly provided, including name, email, and other Google account use data. Only 2 suspects who are currently awaiting trial for that robbery and 2 others in the state have been named, indicating innocents' personal data was disclosed. Now, I want you to stop for a second, and I want you to consider, for all time on Google, and even I have used, and often sometimes, and still do, will have to is a funny word, but you get my point, will use a Google search. And I want you to consider, and don't trust incognito mode, I want you to consider what you've typed into the, say, either the Omni bar, even on, the address bar, but it's called the Omni bar because it does so much, search bar too, on Google Chrome. I want you to consider everything you've ever typed into Google. I want you to consider everywhere you've ever been holding your Android smartphone, and it's a pretty good bet that you're not like one of the Apple faithful that will have no Google services on their device, so consider that as well. And I want you to consider, as I had just previously stated, and have stated for years on this show, any and all data that gets transmitted can and will be used against you. What data can and would be used against you, and how easy would it be for a prosecutor to make a case against you in a court of law, even if they were just looking for somebody to take the fall? It's a pretty good bet that they could get just about anything on any of us and paint us, just with our Google search terms, they could paint us as any kind of criminal in any given moment. Let me finish up this story. Guilty until proven innocent? ? That geofence warrants scoop up innocence data has now been proven beyond doubt. So this is happening. In one previous case detailed by the New York Times, an innocent man was falsely imprisoned for a week, in part because of the data provided by Google. But Oren Kerr, a professor at Berkeley Law, says that the use of innocence information is going to be inherent in investigations. Video footage of bank robberies, for instance, will contain images of innocents there at the time, Kerr adds. Quote, presumably most people who are on that video are innocent, end quote. If you're concerned about being caught up in any dragnet, it's possible to opt out of Google's historic location database. To do this, users can go to their My Activity page in their Google account and click on Activity Controls. From there, you can toggle the history feature off. Again, like I said, in fact, we know that Google can remotely turn features on. Okay, and if the government requests them to do so, well, they give them fucking everything else. Why wouldn't they give them that? Regardless, I don't like Oren Kerr's analogy here. That somehow, well, yeah, you're going to get innocent people involved. If there's a bank robbery, then there's innocent people on the videotape. Yes, but most of us have an expectation, and maybe even in a high risk, let's call it a high risk scenario, like going into a bank, or even into a gas station. We might actually want there to be a video camera there. Now, that camera is ultimately something that I think a lot of times a customer wants to be either be used to prove his innocence, say, against an organization or company, or it's a company, wanting to protect its employees and things like. I mean, like there are arguments to be made, and it's not just all about safety, but there are arguments to be made that yes, like we would agree to these being in these limited spaces that are potentially high risk. Again, whatever, if you want to go with something out of a movie, inner city gas stations or a bank or whatever. But let's be clear, a lot of this stuff is stuff that only happens in movies, but regardless, okay, I mean, crime happens, gas stations getting held up happens every day. I mean, that's not untrue. Bank robberies, amazingly, are still a thing. That's not untrue. My point being is that, yes, there are very limited spaces where we find it acceptable, okay, because they are limited. But this, by its very nature, is unlimited in scope and in scale. You cannot compare video cameras in a business to smartphones fucking everywhere being used for a geofence. That's horseshit. And what should scare you more, this professor is probably teaching the next generation of lawyers at Berkeley Law. So are you going to have a lawyer that's on your fucking side when you go into court over the horse shit and maybe you try to call the FBI like I just did, saying, hey, the FBI just engaged in cyber fraud. I know that you're the FBI, but then who do I call? Well, you should get a lawyer. Okay, I'll get a lawyer. But then the lawyer is like, oh, well, look, you're an innocent person. You agreed to it. You had the smartphone in your pocket. Too bad. Suck a dick. That's how it's going to go down. Unless people make us think about it. And we were talking in the last episode of Sovryn Tech, episode 353. We were talking about, and we read how there are people who will now walk into a house, or before they even go into the house, they will ask the host of the home. They will say, do you have an Alexa device? Do you have X? Do you have XYZ? Do you have this? Do you, whatever, pick the virtual assistant. Do you have this device? And if you do, would you mind turning them off? If not, I'm not entering your home. And I love that. I love that somebody who is probably completely independent of Sovryn Tech, even though a Sovryn Tech listener was laying down, was laying down the truth pretty hard in that thread as well. It's so beautiful to read that other people are on board with this and get it. That's the kind of that's the kind of stance we need to take. And I fucking recommend that we do take it, because it's just getting worse. And to say that we can't stem the tide, I hear that argument, right? It's kind of the Kevin Kelly thing. What technology wants, it's going to get. And technology seems to just want more data. Okay, and I mean Silicon Valley technology. All right. I get that argument. But I also don't think that, you don't have to go down without a fight. I don't think we have to go down at all. I think we can live within the cracks, but we can't build the cracks within the surveillance society that people can live with some degree of privacy or with some degree of autonomy, which is ultimately what it boils down to. Because it's not just privacy, it's also, getting to use cryptocurrencies and cryptography in general, lots of other things. We can't even have the cracks if people don't realize why they're necessary, and there is some degree of network effect for them to use it and to deny what's getting schlepped and forced on us by both the government and in the marketplace. That's what it's going to take. I don't expect all of this to, go the way of the dodo. Not right now. But I do expect that some of us, and I know a lot of us, I know listeners of this show and other people, are intelligent enough to build the cracks that we can slip through and live in and live like actual human fucking beings, instead of just cogs in the machine and data points. I have no interest in just being a data point. People used to talk about social security numbers. Oh, I'm not, when they complain about it, and rightfully so. And they say, well, I'm not a fucking number. Yeah, well, I'm not a data point. I hope you feel the same. Anyway, I did have a climax I wanted to get into this episode, but we went kind of long on these subjects. Something, if you want to get this message out there, as I always say, another great place to do it. Again, let's get the message out. Okay, Sovryn Tech has reach. We got quite a few thousand listeners. It does only go so far. So we want to piggyback on top of that. Spread the signal. Get it out there. And how do you do that? And another great way is to go to Sovryn Tech sponsor Free Talk Live. freetalklive.com, the number 27 talk show in the United States. That number might go up this year, in 2020, who knows? But as in, it might be number 26. Hell, it might be number 20. It might be number 1 one day. But the number 27 talk show in the United States. You want to jump on it, run 7 nights a week, 3 hours a night, open phones. You can call in, you can talk about this stuff, and you can get people, hell yeah, get them riled up, get them talking about it, get them questioning shit. Do not go, do not go into that long night, right, with your Alexa. Fuck it. Call in, freetalklive.com. Check it out. It's a great show. And anyway, that's it for this episode of Sovryn Tech. We will wrap this up here. And more Sovryn Tech, more content throughout Zomia 1 to come throughout the month of December. We are coming in hot on Saturnalia, baby. Woo! So anyway, that's it for this episode. Make sure you go to Zomia1.com, get signed up for the Zomia 1 Underground to get more content and ask me questions. I will see all of you on the other side. Woo!
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. And connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.